We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop. This is the central issue. We need peace without delay. In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad, while they turn us into a third world country and a third world dictatorship right here at home. The State Department, the defense bureaucracy, the intelligence services, and all of the rest need to be completely overhauled and reconstituted to fire the deep staters and put America first. We have to put America first. Finally, we have to finish the process we began under my administration of fundamentally reevaluating NATO's purpose and NATO's mission. Our foreign policy establishment keeps trying to pull the world into conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia based on the lie that Russia represents our greatest threat. But the greatest threat to Western civilization today is not Russia. It's probably, more than anything else, ourselves and some of the horrible USA-hating people that represent us. It's the abolition of our national borders. It's the failure to police our own cities. It's the destruction of the rule of law from within. It's the collapse of the nuclear family and fertility rates like nobody can believe is happening. It's the Marxists who would have us become a godless nation worshiping at the altar of race and gender and environment. And it's the globalist class that has made us totally dependent on China and other foreign countries that basically hate us. These globalists want to squander all of America's strength, blood, and treasure, chasing monsters and phantoms overseas while keeping us distracted from the havoc they're creating right here at home. These forces are doing more damage to America than Russia and China could ever have dreamed. Evicting this sick and corrupt establishment is the monumental task for the next president. And I am the only one who can do it. I'm the only one that can get the job done. I know exactly what has to be done.
Of the collapsing, rotting globalist establishment, Joe Biden yesterday authorized heavy, long-range, precision, nuclear-capable missiles to begin raining down inside Russia, which Putin has said will be an act of war, and that Russia will be officially at war with the United States when Biden first floated it 2.5 months ago. Biden made the authorization at 2 p.m. Central yesterday, and then he went out and gave a speech in the rainforest and wandered off into the forest. He couldn't even talk at the podium. Mitch McConnell now gave a press conference and could not talk. That's who's in charge, trying to start World War III. And on the set doctrines of Russia and the United States, we both have the exact same doctrines when it comes to this. If you bring long-range hypersonic missiles and supersonic missiles up to someone's borders that can carry nuclear weapons, and you fire those at the country, they have to respond as if it's a nuclear attack, because if they have hydrogen bombs on board as their payload, they can take out your missile fields or defense fields in a sneak attack, which under Obama, and it's still the policy, the United States changed from a non-strike first capability or policy to a first strike policy. These policies are important for people like the Hollywood set that have come out Sean Penn a few years ago and said, let's have nuclear weapons on the table. Let's go ahead and use them. Well, you can't do that, dumbass, because it's all been war gamed by everybody, and it always ends the same. It's called MAD, mutually assured destruction, or MAD, because you'd have to be mad to do it. And of course, we're showing you footage here of atomic bombs in the 50s. Those are tinker toys compared to bombs that are thousands of times more powerful than what was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. So I've been following this very closely. You're going to get the best coverage here. I don't know when and if these are going to start raining down on Russia. Today, tomorrow, next week, but it's clearly to destabilize things with 62 days left until President Trump gets into office and stops all this madness. Now, Trump has come out and said we need to have an immediate ceasefire. Zelensky and Putin immediately need to go to the table, and this needs to stop now. We'll play that coming up. But this is absolute, total insanity. Don Jr. came out last night and said the exact same thing I was saying last night. This is clearly the deep state trying to destabilize things. Alexander Soros says this is great news, that heavy missiles are going to start raining down on top of Russian military targets and cities. Absolute, total lunatic land. But what have I been saying? Their main move, not just civil unrest, not just cyber attacks they blame on Russia, not just false flags that they, quote, Trump supporters attack minorities, because they've pre-programmed all that. It's attack Russia, and then when Russia attacks back, at least escalate the war. They've got the drafts ready. They've got civil emergencies are ready. That's the lesser of two evils, or just total nuclear war, which is all the mainline experts agree with me. We're the closest to nuclear war ever. I'll show you all the articles, the statements. This is bonker town. This is the craziest thing in my 50 years on Earth, by far, I've ever seen. And everybody else agrees. I mean, and Russia says this, just the authorization, they are now at war with the United States and NATO. And I can show you that from CNN. So it's all coming up. You can't make this stuff up. You think the deep state was just going to go away? Nope, they're going to start World War III unless we stop them. We'll talk about how we do that. Yesterday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, the New York Times published an article that the White House has since confirmed, saying that Biden has officially told the Pentagon and NATO to greenlight what's already been delivered, ATACMS family of missiles, not just the Storm Shadows built between the United States and England. The components here, they're assembled in France, but the British own the company with the United States company. It's a NATO consortium. That heavy cruise missiles, giant missiles, that are designed to carry hydrogen bomb payloads, that's their main mission, to be high speed, up close to the border, that you'd use to knock out Russian nuke sites in a preemptive attack. They are a sneak attack weapon when deployed the way they are. And the Russians have said, and Putin has said, and we played the videos last night, months ago, when Biden said he'd authorized it, but didn't want it to be known officially. The Russians said, you better stop. If you deploy those, we are, quote, at war with the United States and NATO. And if you fire them into our country, we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons on you. And I'll show you the articles and show you the videos again, but this is not a secret. This is everywhere. It didn't trend as important as the NFL last night and today, but close. You know, World War III was number 8 on X. Should have been number 1. You're seeing videos of some of these missiles with cluster bomb packages, but their main mission is hydrogen bombs. So the Russians have said, if you move them to our border and aim them at us, we consider we are at full war with NATO, which we already are at war with Russia, but it's official. And if you fire them into our country, we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons on NATO countries. And Zelensky was celebrating it yesterday. Alexander Soros was celebrating it. The Democrats were, yay, let's bomb Russia. That'll show them. It's a nuclear superpower. They had more nukes reportedly than the United States. Nuclear submarines off of the Pacific, Atlantic, and Gulf Coast of Mexico. So let's go over it. Biden authorizes Ukraine to use U.S. long-range missiles to strike inside Russia. Fox News. Biden approves Ukraine's use of long-range U.S. weapons. It's not Ukraine running it. Inside Russia, reversing policy. And the Washington Post says, most of his advisors told him don't do it. It'll probably cause nuclear war, but somehow he doesn't know who he is now. He just did it. Deep state financier Alex Soros openly celebrating the potential of U.S. long-range weapons being fired into Russia. They aren't even hiding anymore. They are openly pushing World War III. This is great news, said Alexander Soros. Biden has, for the first time, authorized Ukraine forces to use Western-made long-range weapons to strike inside Russia. You know, Vietnam was a proxy war between the United States and the Chinese and the Russians, but imagine if LBJ said, we're going to start bombing inside Russia in this proxy war. Korea was a proxy war between the United States and China. Imagine if the authorization was to start bombing inside China or vice versa. So that's what this is. Oh, we'll just bomb the country we're in a proxy war with. What's that do? Take you into full direct war. The same people that told you they were winning in Vietnam, that Saddam Hussein was about to attack you, that Afghanistan was a win, and that Biden has sharp as a tack, have told you Russia is the aggressor and that Ukraine is a democracy. Sweden tells citizens to prepare for war. 5 million households get pamphlets on how to get ready their home for nuclear Armageddon, as Biden is accused of trying to start World War III. This is a very big step towards the start of World War III, says furious Putin official, as Biden lets Ukraine strike inside Russia before Trump becomes president. It's not Ukraine, it's NATO. They direct it. They satellite direct the weapons. German Chancellor Scholz is refusing approving long-range missiles and saying this needs to stop. Yeah, I guess the Germans lost 24 million people in World War II. They might have learned their lesson. That Hitler and Napoleon had a bad idea attacking Russia. Joe Biden trying to start World War III before Donald Trump takes office after controversial move, says President Trump's son. Yeah. And it goes on and on. I'm going to go over all of that in more detail and explain doctrine in a moment. But here is President Trump explaining this needs to end right now. There needs to be a ceasefire and Putin and Zelensky need to come to the table. But instead, the State Department admits they're putting all their resources, their entire budget that wasn't even earmarked for Ukraine, into Ukraine, and a bunch of them have bought houses in the CIA and State Department in Ukraine, and they're in the New York Times talking about leaving the country to Ukraine and moving there. And a bunch of these officials are former Ukrainians, their parents, grandparents, literally fought on the Nazi side in World War II. Also, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, her dad was one of the top Nazis in Ukraine. Can't make this up. And grandfather. And so this is like home to them. You're like, why would they move to Ukraine? That's like, because they're from there. So they've been using the money and laundering it over there, and they've got all that billions and billions for themselves. And so they're just putting all the money they can there right now, while also escalating into pure World War III to create such a global crisis. Somehow Trump doesn't get into office, or he's handed a giant war. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. Here is President Trump. Remember, we're going to get World War III with Trump. No, he had no major wars with Trump. Here's President Trump.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon.